We have core values that we recite, that are paramount to our organization, our firm. And it's something that every Tuesday when we meet all together, one person recites those core values, and then we leave it open for somebody to share an example of how somebody in the firm lived those core values during the past week. And it's not something that we just have written on a piece of paper that never gets looked at. It literally gets looked at and talked about on a very frequent basis.
Welcome to Mitlin Money Mindset, your weekly dose of inspiration and insights to ensure you enjoy each step of your journey. Whether you're saving for the future, planning your next big adventure, or simply looking to add more joy to your life, you've come to the right place. Now, let's dive in.
I'm Larry Sprung, founder and wealth advisor of Mitlin Financial, and usually your host on the Mitlin Money Mindset. But today, we've got something special lined up for you. I have truly enjoyed this journey. Podcasting has brought so many amazing people into my life, and it has taught me so much. Way back when I launched the show, I answered our most asked question, shared our story, and a bit about my why. That first show, well, let's just go with life is about doing and improving. As I thought about the joy of our 200th episode milestone, it felt right to revisit our story and some updates. But since one of the things I've learned through this process is I do not enjoy talking to myself, bringing on a guest host became a joyful solution. So I've invited my friend and fellow podcast host, Matt Halloran, to step in and interview me. I know we're in good hands as Matt is one of the amazing people that podcasting has brought into my life. So let's dive in and flip the script as I take a seat on the other side of the mic.
All right. Well, Larry, as you and I have talked about before, it's really different when you're on the other side of the mic. So are you ready for this, dude?
I am so ready. I actually like it this way. It's fine. It's fine by me.
I love asking the questions a lot more than I love answering them. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of a reset here and find a little bit more just to refresh the audience and of course, hopefully have people share this podcast to continue to grow the audience. Who is Larry Sprung? Tell us a little bit about you specifically.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'm a husband to Denise and a father to Zach and Jeremy, which is they're the pride of my life, and they're my why I do a lot of the things I do, and essentially why I am in the business I am in is really life circumstances. I grew up in a very middle-class household, and my mother was diagnosed with cancer at a very early age, and I was 12 or 13 at the time. Unfortunately, she ended up succumbing to cancer about 10 years later around her 47th birthday. But I watched my dad go through the trials and tribulations of, working a full-time job as a teacher, New York City school teacher. He had a side gig before it was a side gig. He had his own business that was actually named after my sister and I. And I watched him juggling all these things. And I always felt like if he had a financial advisor, somebody that he could lean on, that could guide him, help him, it wouldn't have mitigated my mom's situation, but I feel like it would have added to his clarity, taken off some of the burden in his life, and made things just a little bit simpler. And as I was exploring careers, I thought, you know what, if I could help people like my dad, what a rewarding thing to do, what a rewarding career. And then I started thinking, well, it doesn't always have to be helping people through trials and tribulations. It could be actually good things, helping them get their kids to college or buy a second home or retire if that's what they want to do. So that's what landed me where I am today. And I think it's been a rewarding ride thus far. And I am looking forward to many, many more years to come here.
I really don't think people truly understand the impact of having a financial services professional like yourself in their life and how that can fundamentally change so many aspects of your life in so many things that actually financially you don't touch. And this is one of the reasons why I'm really so honored to be able to be here interviewing, because I know that's a huge component of who you are and what you do. Now, as a very well-known financial services professional, what is the question that you just always seem to answer over and over and over again?
Yeah. So, people think that one of the most widely asked questions that we receive are, how much money do I need to retire? Or how much money do I need to save to send my kid to the college they want to go to? And ironically, none of those questions, no financial question is our most asked question. The most asked question we get hands down is, where the heck did the Mitlin name come? Where did the company name come from? What's this
I
Mitlin?
asked you that, by the way, when we
Yeah.
first met.
Everybody does, because they're like, your last name's not Mitlin. Your first name's not. Nobody that works there is Mitlin. So how the heck did what is this Mitlin thing? So that is by far the most asked question we get.
Well, I remember sitting with you and your wife. We were at a conference and you guys were talking about the podcast. And I was like, Mitlin, and I was just, you probably could have heard the gears grinding in my head trying to figure it out. Okay. So explain it. Where did the word Mitlin come from and what does it mean?
Yeah, so it is a smash up, pure smash up. Mitlin, MIT, came from my wife's grandfather, whose name was Mitchell. LIN came from my mother, Linda, who I mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
And basically, we took their two names. Mitchell was a very key person in my wife's life, and my mom, Linda, was a key person in my life. And we ended up using those three letters from each of their names to bring it together for the firm name Mitlin that we have today. So yes, it's not named after me, not named after my last name or anything like that. And it's named after two very important people in my wife and I's lives.
You know, first off, I absolutely love the story and love the origin story, but I love it even more that you didn't name it Larry Sprung Financial, right? I love that it is outside of you because Larry, I think the people who've been listening for 200 episodes and the people who do know that that's a huge component of not just your firm, but also you as a person. What do you think about that?
Yeah, listen, I agree. And this was intentional, right? We didn't want to name the firm after me where everything was tied to me because most of the stuff that happens here at at our firm is not touched by me. It's touched by our stakeholders and our team members here. And, they do a fantastic job. And also, in terms of longevity and succession, I really would love this firm to live beyond my lifetime. And that makes it difficult when I'm no longer here to have a firm named after me. I think it's so much more memorable to have a firm name that's not tied and not just only in the financial profession. I think any business, it behooves them, the owner, not to have the business named after them for those reasons.
I absolutely agree. And I love the fact that, and you talk about this a lot, that you have a team surrounding you and you have a very, very deep bench. So Larry, if we're going to talk about the rink thing in your travels in just a minute, but if something did happen to you, then your clients are still going to be able to have the level of service that they expect from working with your firm, right? Whether you're there or not. And if you ever want to, and we're going to jump into the joy thing here. If you really want to just really continue and maybe blow this whole idea of, what brought you joy or what brings you joy idea here. If you wanted to retire, right? Which I don't think that's in the cards for
No,
you anytime soon.
no, not at
I
all.
love the fact that you have it a little bit less about you. Okay. So on your
Yeah, well,
shirt. Oh yeah.
I would like, I would like, before we jump into the joy thing, Matt, I think it's relevant to share why we named it after those two people, because I think it's very important and it's very paramount to, why we ended up using that name, because these aren't two ordinary people, right? My wife's grandfather, Mitchell, was a New York City police officer. He was just a really all-around great guy. Anybody who I've ever met, and I did not meet him. He was deceased, unfortunately, before I met Denise. But at the same time, anybody who's ever met him only has kind words to say about this man. He was a veteran as well. And he was one of those guys that when the ice cream man came down the street, even though he wasn't really a tremendously wealthy guy, he would buy ice cream for the entire block just because it brought him joy to see the kids' faces.
Mm.
And my mom, on the other hand, Linda, the LIN, she was a fighter. She battled cancer for 10 plus years, and she was a rock within the community. Great values, always just an all around good human being. And when my wife and I were thinking about naming the firm after them, we couldn't think about two better people to represent the values that we wanted to represent as an organization to the families that we serve. I think that that's vital. And I think, going back to those team members you mentioned, our team members feel those values, and we talk about those values and where they originated from. So and when I walk in every morning and I see the Mitlin sign, it just gives me a lot of pride knowing that, those two individuals who were key in our lives are still with us today. And I think the last piece I'll add that a lot of people don't know unless they've heard the story is my mom and her grandfather, Mitchell, they literally passed away within hours of each other. And when they
Oh
passed
my.
away, I did not know my wife, Denise. We met about 2 or 3 months later. So, when we were thinking about and we were reconciling where we were, that was when we put together that her grandfather and my mother literally hours, same day, hours apart, passed away. And we like to think that they brought us together, and, they keep us and our firm and very close to the families we serve each day, every day since, as a result.
Now, you use the word value a whole bunch, or values. So we understand. Thank you for that explanation of your mom and grandfather. But how have you solidified that into a value set that is ubiquitous and part of the mission and vision and the culture you've created at Mitlin Financial?
So we have core values that we recite, that are paramount to our organization, our firm. And it's something that every Tuesday when we meet
Mm.
all together, one person recites those core values. And then we leave it open for somebody to share an example of how somebody in the firm lived those core values during the past week. And it's not something that we just have written on a piece of paper that never gets looked at. It literally gets looked at, talked about on a very frequent basis. And some of those things are, fiduciary mindset, do the right thing, responsiveness and proactive communication, charitable, things that are tangible that we want to live by each day. And they're not just written on paper. We're living them each day for the families that we serve.
Nice. All right. You ready for the joy question?
Shoot.
All right. So you are known because you wear the shirt. I've seen you at conferences. You wear it a lot, which is on your right. What did you do today that brought you joy? Where did that come from, man?
Yeah, I'd like to say I was the genius behind it, but I was not the genius behind it. When we were thinking about putting this podcast together and outlining it out, Denise, who's our director of marketing, she's not just my wife, she's our director of marketing as well. She said, "Hey, you need to have a question that you ask each of your guests at some point during the show, a common thread to kind of, bring it all back together and see how different people react and answer the question." And she was the one that came up with this, "What did you do today that brought you joy?" Question. And we ended up putting it out there everywhere, shirts, like you said, and, on our website. And the reaction has been unbelievable. Not only now am I known as the joy guy, but I walk through airports with the t-shirt I'm wearing now, and inevitably people stop me, take pictures of it. People ask me what it is. They ask me what brought me joy that day. I think one of the funniest stories was I was with my family in Disney World. We were on line for a ride, and the cast member there, the Disney cast member, looks me in the eye. I was first online, and she goes, "I ate a bag of Hershey Kisses." And I looked at her and I'm like, I look at Denise, I look at the kids, I'm like, what the hell is
What?
this lady? What is she talking about? And Denise and the boys go, hey, dummy, look at your shirt. She's answering your question. I'm like, oh, she said, oh, that's what brought her joy that day. And those are the kinds of responses that we've gotten. And I think in a world where we've seen a lot of division, a lot of infighting, I think we have to focus on what brings us joy more. And when it comes to our profession in particular, I think a lot of advisors, and there are great advisors out there, don't get me wrong, focus on the numbers. How much are you going to need to retire, budgets. And that's good and needed. But at the same time, this money that you're helping this family accumulate for whatever goal is really, at the end of the day, a tool to bring them joy. So why not talk about it from a joyful aspect rather than a negative aspect in terms of, budget and this and that, and the words that, start giving people chills. So we frame it in a different way, and we talk to them about accumulating money towards things that are going to bring them joy. And if they don't enjoy putting a budget together, well, you know what? Frame it differently. We want you to put a budget together in a way that's going to create joy in your life. So however that is for you, let's put that together and figure that out. And if you have the ability to do what you want to do and bring you joy, then why not? Why not do it?
Well, I think one of the reasons why your firm has been so successful and you have so many happy clients is because you do look at things fundamentally differently. And that led you to another major milestone for you, both personally and professionally, which is financial planning made personal. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a 10-year book in the making. And, I just didn't have the time to sit down and actually put it together. I know you're a published author. You have a new one coming out soon. So I'm excited to read that one as well. And it's quite the undertaking. And I found myself with some extra time once my oldest started college and my youngest moved away to boarding school. He's since graduated from there, but I had the time to sit down and write it. And really the impetus was, from watching, a lot of quote unquote pundits out there talking about financial planning and wealth management. I always found a lot of these folks talking about in terms of everybody should do this or everybody should do that. And the reality is everybody can't do that. Everybody shouldn't do that. Everybody may not end up in the same place by doing that. And financial planning is very personal. So really the book was really written in terms of a pushback to that concept and saying that some of these concepts you have to or should think about following in practice, but at the same time, it still behooves you to get specific advice and guidance or follow a specific strategy or methodology that works for you and your family. And, just as an example, we have people that say, oh, well, isn't the old adage, I need $1 million to retire? I said, well, I've heard that for the last 25 years, and $1 million 25 years ago is not $1 million today. But let's say it's still true. It might work for you if your income or your expenses are $40,000 or $50,000 a year. That strategy may work for you. But if you're in a high expense area like New York, California, somewhere like that, and your expenses are 100, 150, 200, that's not going to get you very far, $1 million. So you're going to need much more than that. So it was really a pushback to that. Everybody should be doing this. Everybody should be doing that. Because at the end of the day, financial planning is very personal, and it really should be about what brings you and your family joy along the process.
One of the joyful things that you and I have talked about a lot, since we both love this medium in the world of podcasting, is we have the chance to meet unbelievably super cool people. Can you talk a little bit more about that tangential thing that has become not so tangential when it comes to the podcast, that you're really enjoying interviewing some really neat people?
Listen, I love the medium, and you and I have had these conversations, and I've had numerous conversations of people who are exploring podcasting. And one of the things that ultimately gets asked at some point or spoken about is, what's the return on investment? If I'm going to spend this money, what's the return on investment? And some people are kind of shocked when I give them my answer. And the answer is, I don't care. It could be zero. It doesn't really matter to me. That's not why I'm doing it. I'm really doing it. My return on investment is, as you said, getting to meet and talk with and speak with people that I ordinarily probably would never have had the opportunity to do so, and using it as an opportunity to learn myself, learn about different people, different cultures, different ways of doing business, different entrepreneurial ventures. It fascinates me to my core having all these conversations. I've spoken with an owner of the New York Islanders hockey team. I've spoken with an owner of the Seattle Kraken. I've spoken with ex-NHL players, ex-NFL players. I've spoken with some of the top entrepreneurs, the founder of Hydro Flask, one of the founders, one of the main implementers in EOS, the operating system. I've spoken to some really good people that I probably wouldn't have had a conversation with at all, or had an opportunity to meet, but because have a podcast, they're willing to have a conversation. It's been amazing learning and meeting and being introduced to these people. And at the end of the day, I think one of the biggest keys, which I try to impress upon people, again, even if the ROI is zero, I've now created this curated library that when I'm meeting with the families we serve, if they have a challenge or they have a roadblock that, they don't really want to rely on just me for. They need an expert, like let's say it's estate planning, or we had somebody that needed private air travel. I go to my arsenal and my library of podcast guests, and I send them the episode, and I'm like, hey, you need private air? I had one of the top people that has one of the top private air companies. Here's a little bit about it. If you're interested, I can make an introduction to that person. Or estate planning. Maybe you don't understand irrevocable versus revocable. Well, I had somebody on the show that went through those differences, and maybe I talked to you blue in the face and it doesn't hit right. And that's fine. Let's get a lawyer who talks about this all the time, and this is what he does, and maybe his voice will resonate with you. So I have this library that is invaluable that I can share with the families we serve, and my greater network of accountants, attorneys, and other COIs that are helpful as well.
Yeah. For me, it's the art of storytelling. And I love being the primer, or the person who can prime pumps to get to hear those people's stories. And thank you for sharing that, because that was absolutely fantastic. Now, there's another thing that you're doing, and you do this very publicly, which is a magnificent aspect of your brand. That is this, what rink is Larry at? Now, my favorite thing that I saw on Twitter was somebody who was telling you that was terrible grammar. And I thought you handled that incredibly well, by the way. But how did this social experiment come to be? And let's talk about that, please.
Yeah, I think that person hits me up every time I put out a new episode about the grammar. But in full disclosure, he had me a little nervous. I put it through Grammarly, and it checked out. So I think we're okay. But neither here nor there. So it was an interesting thing. So it's really in line with our core value of being charitable. And essentially, I guess several years ago, my youngest son was in a situation where he was at a tournament. It was a championship game, and he took a penalty late in the third period near the end of the game, and he was in the penalty box. And it was, I believe, a tie game. So if the other team scored, they probably were going to win the game. And essentially, the game ended up continuing. He got out of the penalty box. He ended up going right out on the ice, grabbing the puck, and ended up taking control of the game, scoring a goal, and winning the game. And we put up a post on LinkedIn that basically was along the lines of, hey, we don't always do things right. Sometimes we make mistakes, but it's all about owning those mistakes and taking advantage and learning and fixing the mistakes. And that's kind of what he did in that moment. And then what happened was really unintended consequences, a strategic byproduct, I guess, of that post, was people that we were connected to in the hockey community started putting up, oh, I know what rink that is. That was Aston, PA. And then somebody, oh, no, that was this rink. And somebody else was this rink. And Denise and I started talking about it, and we were like, what if we started taking like a minute video at every rink that we go to, which we're at a lot of rinks, as you can tell. We have not had to repeat a rink yet, and it's been like 3 or 4 years at this point. So we're at a lot of rinks. So I basically film a quick video. We don't make it hard. We want people to guess the right rink, or at least somebody to guess the right rink. And then we essentially, from the right answers, pick a winner and donate $100 to their charity of choice. So when they see us post a video, which we post one every month during the NHL hockey season, you'll see guess what rink Larry is at. Go up. You post the rink, your guess, and your charity, tag them, and then we will donate $100 to the winner from that month. And it's been a lot of fun. It's given us a lot of opportunity to interact with some of the families we serve, some people we don't know, introducing us to brand new hockey families that are going through the same struggles, trials, and tribulations that we go through as a hockey family as well. And at the same time, we're making good, solid donations to great charities and learning about some charities that we weren't even aware of. We had no knowledge previous of, and it's made us aware of some great organizations that are doing good work out there.
As we wrap up the show today, Larry, I have 2 other questions for you. So as you know, I tried to do my best to prepare anytime I'm interviewing anybody, but that doesn't mean that I don't miss things. So is there a question I should have asked you today that I didn't?
I love that question that you asked, because that's your question that you ask everybody. So
I do.
what did you do today that brought you joy is for you. Is there something that I asked or didn't ask that I should have asked? And I think that, I think the struggle for advisors is really, you have to build those personal connections and those personal relationships. And I think one of the things and the best ways that we've done that, and a lot of this is credit to you, Matt, and the content you put out and listening to you and your team, is marketing isn't just having a podcast, right? That's one component of it.
Sure.
Marketing is having a book that you share your thoughts with. Marketing is having a joy journal that goes with that book. Marketing's having a podcast, getting on media, being a thought leader, writing articles. And I think that, when you start putting the marketing together, which is all those things, I think it unlocks a lot of keys for success for your firm, sure, but also success for the families you serve, because they get to understand, rather than you having to make 500 phone calls a day like I used to have to make, or touch with all these families on a daily basis. Basically, you could set up a feed where they can see all of your thought leadership. And I think there's some studies out there that show at the end of the day, whether they read an article or definitely through video, after a short period of time, the family doesn't even realize if they actually saw you in person. And this happens to me too. I'm like, hey, did I see that person? Or it was a video online, So I think that you have to connect on all those levels, and not everybody's going to be interested in a podcast or a book. So, put all those avenues out there, and people will gravitate to what's important to them. And I think that's something that we've adopted. And a lot of that's due to you and your team, and a lot of the great content you've put out and educated us with.
Thanks, brother. Well, I get to ask you the question you get asked to every one of your guests, which is, what did you do today that brought you joy?
Yeah, so I'm gonna put this out there. I'm gonna take something from this past weekend, and it might put a date on this when we're recording on this episode, but that's fine. I went on Friday with Denise, my wife, and my 2 boys, because my boys invited my wife and I a couple of months ago and said, hey, we ended up with 4 tickets to Luke Combs. Do you and Mom want to go with us? And I was like, yeah. I mean, that's usually our first answer, yes. Because if our boys are going to hang out with us, we're like, yeah, we're in.
Yeah.
I didn't know much about Luke Combs or his music. I knew about fast cars and the notoriety around that over the last year or so. But I will tell you, that concert brought me a lot of joy. Joy because I got to hang out with my family, which is always joyful. Joy because it was great live music. It was probably one of the best concerts I've ever seen. And I wouldn't say I'm a huge country fan, but I am a huge Luke Combs fan now and will probably be listening to a lot more of his music. And just having that opportunity to spend that day with the family, go to that concert. I think at the end of the day, when we talk about joy and we talk about this with families, those are the kinds of experiences and events that they're looking to strive for and utilize this hard-earned money that they've entrusted us with for these types of events and opportunities, because I couldn't have thought of a better way to spend that time, which is more valuable than the money that it cost us to go to the show. It was amazing.
Well, I want to thank you for asking me to spend this time with you. I feel very honored to be the guest host of your 200th episode. And I hope that other people will also take the invite to be able to share the show with more people so that we can get your message out and help more people truly understand what brings them joy. So thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Matt. Enjoy your day. I want to thank Matt Halloran for flipping the script and sitting on the other side of the mic for the Mitlin Money Mindset. Matt is a great example of someone that I have met through the world of podcasting, and I am grateful for his friendship. Proudmouth and Matt should be a go-to if you're looking to start your own podcast. His knowledge and support and the process of his team are second to none. Thanks again for joining us today and hosting the Mitlin Money Mindset. It brought me a great deal of joy being on the other side of the mic.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Mitlin Money Mindset. Remember, it's not just about the money, it's finding joy in the journey and embracing the right mindset. If you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Don't forget to follow along for more tips and inspiration. Please visit the social links below to connect with Larry or his guests. Until next time, keep smiling, keep thriving, and remember to think about, what did you do today that brought you joy?